Well, hello, avid readers. Trisha Goyer here, and I am so excited to have a new friend here, Bethany Turner. Okay, I have so many wonderful things to say, but first, Bethany, I would just give you a chance to introduce yourself. So tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited it's like, how have we not met before? So I'm
I
glad that's
know.
finally happening. No, I am, I live in Southwest Colorado, kind of in the middle of nowhere in a delightful area of the world. But I'm originally from Kentucky, moved out here a little over 20 years ago because I met a guy online, in the 90s when that was kind of sketch, but it worked out. We're still together and all that
I'm
stuff.
glad it worked out. Yeah.
It's like still alive. It's good. He wasn't a serial killer or anything. And we have a couple of grown sons, but yeah, on the writing front, I write romantic comedies. I've written, I'm working on book number 11 total, but like
Oh, wow.
romantic comedy number 8. So that's definitely the bulk of them. And that's what I love to do. And yeah, so really excited to be here.
Well, I am so excited. So I'm currently reading, it's like I'm on chapter 24. Brynn and Sebastian hate each other, a love story. And I will just say, it was my wonderful assistant, Kristen, that's like, you need to interview someone funny that writes like humor for April's 1st. Even though your book is not a joke because it's so well written. But I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, I think I like this. Then by chapter 2, I'm like, I really like this. By chapter 4, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love these people. I want to know everything about them. Um, so fun.
Best.
And it is set in the middle of nowhere, Colorado.
Mhm.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about the plot, like just like back cover copy stuff? Because I got so many
Sure.
things I want to say about this book.
Sure. So it's the story of Brynn Cornell, who has basically like just been riding this wonderful momentum train of her career, and she's now the host of Sun Up, the number one morning show in the country, which think the Today Show kind of thing. And so she just got moved up to the main couch, how those things work. And so yeah, it's the end of her first week. Everything's gone pretty well, and literally like 30 seconds left in her last show of the first week. She gets caught on a hot mic tearing apart her hometown of Adelaide Springs, Colorado. And so she's in immediate damage control mode and trying to figure out how to salvage her career and her reputation. And she ends up realizing she's going to have to go back home, which is the last thing
Mm.
she ever wanted to do.
And she hasn't been home in a long time.
Long
So you
time,
have
like 20 years.
yeah, and just left. No one has had contact with her. She's out of
Nope.
there. So she's going to
Yep.
have to face everything in her past. And as we're going along, we find out what those things are in the past. So that's
Right.
Brynn. And then you have Sebastian. Tell us a little bit about Sebastian,
I
the
love
hunky, nerdy
Sebastian's.
hero. Yeah, I know.
I love the hunky nerds. It's just my
I know.
favorite. He's okay. So Sebastian is a little bit of a mystery to unravel as they get going. But what we know about him is he's in this town as well. He's not originally from there. He's more of a late transport, and but he loves it. He's Everyone in town loves him. He's on the city council. He's doing these odds and ends jobs, all these different things. But we find out pretty quickly he's actually like a Pulitzer winning reporter, journalist, and who about 6 years ago just disappeared from the face of the earth, basically, as far as anyone was concerned. And so, yeah, so you have these two people, one just desperately trying to hang on to her career and
Mhm.
her fame, and the other one who is in that same town desperately trying to get away from the fame and the career. And it's not love at first sight, as the title may
They
allow.
hate each other. They
They hate
hate
each
each
other.
other.
They do, they do. So, and for Sebastian, it's very much, more than anything, I mean, he doesn't like Brynn and everything she stands for, and what he thinks he has this, kind of a Pride and Prejudice kind of thing of he does have this perception of her and all that, but at the same time, mostly it's she said awful things about the people he loves, and he's not gonna put up
Mhm.
with it. So yeah. Oh, and Murrow the dog. I just saw
Murrow the
that.
dog. I know. Murrow the dog. And oh, So I love Layla and Cole. I mean, all the people are just so sweet there. I feel like they could be my friends. So you live in like the middle of nowhere, Colorado. You just said like how many of these people are maybe inspired a little bit by people in your
Oh,
community?
yeah, totally. I mean, not so much like this is that guy and that's that guy, but like amalgamations of people, no
Mhm.
doubt. We live in a comparatively big time town compared to Adelaide Springs. Adelaide Springs is, I forget what the population was, but in the 300s. I mean, it's pretty
Right.
small. We're in a town of about 7,000. So, we're big time
Yeah, you're
here.
big town there,
We're
big town
big
there.
town. We're the big city. But still, definitely it is very much based on a lot of those towns and these little mountain towns all around. And just, and small town in general, I think of my husband and I say all the time, it's like there are these drawbacks to small towns as far as everybody knows everybody's business. And, you kind of feel like, you walk into a restaurant and everybody looks up because they assume they know you and they want to see
Mhm.
who just walked in. But at the same time, when there's a house fire or a cancer diagnosis or anything hard hitting people in life, it's like the town rallies and
Yeah.
they are there to support people. And and that's kind of the beauty of a small town. And you have some, I think that was part of the fun too of looking at those traits and seeing very much why what Brynn wanted so desperately to get away from in a small town is exactly the thing that Sebastian needs as he's kind of recovering from his journey. So it just kind of depends on point of view, perspective, all
Mhm.
those different things.
Yeah, and I think Brynn is thinking she needs to leave this behind, and then when she comes back, she realized, like, "Okay, I need this again." So
Yeah,
I'm not gonna give away too much, but there's that unfolding, like, she kinda unfolds, becomes more real,
yeah,
as she's remind the people around her, they didn't kinda brush her off like she thought they would have, so that's
right.
so fun. Okay, we have to talk about the PTA moms, though. So the PT the PTA moms, I'm just, like, dying as I'm listening to the PTA moms and their PTA night at
Mhm,
the bar and grill with
mhm.
Sebastian as the bartender. I mean, that's way in the book, but just generally talk about the PTA moms because you mentioned them early. We just really get to
Do.
see it later in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of a little setup there of like, I didn't even know that I was actually gonna write a scene for them when I first threw them in there, but I was like, "Oh, we have to see them." And it's very much just yeah, it's this group of very put together ladies who are essentially running the town in some ways because they're the
Mhm.
moms,
Yeah.
doing all this stuff. And yet once a month they get together for PTA night at Cassidy's and everything breaks loose once a
Everything
month.
literally everything. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Everything breaks loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
the
and they have a
one
little bit of crush on Sebastian as a bartender. So like they're hooting and hollering because, so it's lots of fun.
It's so fun. Okay, but the one thing where I, like, stopped and rewound because I'm like, "I do not believe she just said that." You talk about one of the ladies invites him to the homeschool weekend or something. I'm like, "I'm a homeschool mom." Like, I was dying. I'm like she's like, "I don't even wanna know what happens in those homeschool weekends." I'm like, "What?
Oh,
What?"
no. Oh, the stuff I make up and comes out of my mouth. I'm
Uh,
so amazed I still have friends sometimes.
I know. I'm like, "I don't know what kind of homeschool weekends these people are
Yeah,
going to,
it's
but
like, but I'm not gonna be a part of that.
I'm not gonna be a part of
Uh,
that." Yeah, so it's just those little things like that that are just, like, kinda thrown out there, and I bet, like, when you're
yeah.
writing, is it just like that those things pop out, like, train of thought, and then suddenly they're on the page and like, "Okay, we're just gonna run with this."
Uh-huh, 100%. Yeah, the age-old question, plotter or pantser. It's like, I would not
Mhm.
know how to plot a book to save my life. You know,
Okay.
I'm such a pantser, and it's really, I mean, I think especially romantic comedy for me, again, everybody's different, but for me, like, I just need to it's the funny of life that
Mhm.
always amuses me and that I want on the page, and the less I get in the way of what's actually happening in that moment and just see what happens, those are where some of my favorite moments usually come from. And so yeah, there are things that I say sometimes that I mean I do usually when I laugh at myself, it isn't because I'm like, oh, I'm really funny. It's more just because that doesn't happen very often. But there are moments where I'm like, if I get away with saying this, it's gonna be hilarious. I
Yeah.
mean, if this gets published, I'm gonna die. So those are the moments that make me laugh a lot of the time, and that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, and I'm just even the romantic moments, like the meet cute part where they're like, "Oh my goodness." It's like in a tree. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, "I would never have come up with that." Like, how did that I don't even know how she came up with that. Like, stuck in a tree. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and the way I came up with that was Brynn climbed a tree, and I had to figure out how to get her down, and I was like, "Oh." I mean,
Oh,
I didn't know it
yeah.
was coming either, it's just kind of like, "Okay, once Sebastian's in that tree, we got a new thing happening." So,
There we go.
you just go where it goes.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I gotta hear let's
Yes.
rewind. We could just talk about this book, which is amazing. Go get the book. If you wanna laugh, go get the book. Just saying that. I'm listening to it on Audible, which they did a really good job with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, did a really good job. But I wanna hear about, like, how you got on this journey. So tell us the story of how Bethany became an author. That could be like a book, How Bethany Became an Author.
A love
A
story.
a love story. Yeah.
No, I never, I'm not one of those people who dreamed of it. I had no idea that it's where it was going. My life is pantser as well, apparently. But I was actually a vice president of a bank, and at like 35 years old or something like that, when this was all kind of, no, that can't be right. I'm not that old. Early 30s. And all this was happening, and it was really stressful. Like, we were being bought out for the second time within like 2 years. And, it was
Mm.
just one of those corporate takeover periods of life. And I was miserable and had young kids at home that weren't getting the best version of me by any stretch of the imagination, and a husband that definitely was not getting the best version of his wife. And during that time, I just needed a creative outlet because I'm actually like, I was in theater. I was a theater major in college, and I used to
Mm.
do community theater, and I didn't have time for that. It's like life did not allow. And so that's when I started writing. And I had never really written before of any substance at all. But I started just, I mean, it was literally just pen to paper, stream of consciousness. Like, I created this character, and she wrote her memoirs, and she was a celebrity. And so, like, every character in there was this celebrity and all these things that were happening in her life. And it meant nothing. I thought, it was just like, I got to get something out of my head. And before I knew it, it had turned into massive, massive words, and had a couple of friends read it. And it was one of those things like, this is fun, and I really enjoyed it. And, oh, hey, hold on, new idea. Let me try something, And so suddenly I was a writer. Um, Still didn't know at that point that it was going to turn into anything official or professional
Mhm.
or anything like that, until I actually so I finally left the job, just couldn't take it anymore. And this was not like, I could not afford to leave the job, is was a really important part of all that. It was not a, oh, we'll be fine. We're no, it was one of those that we're stepping out on so much faith because we can't afford this. And yet we can't keep living this way either.
Mhm.
And during that time, it was like school had just let out. My kiddos were, I guess, like 11 and 8 at the time. And I spent the summer with them. First time ever, because I'd always been
Mm.
working. And like, I'd take them to the pool. And while they're at the pool, this story was where, and I was just writing faster than I could keep up with. And I wrote what went on to be my first romantic comedy. I read it in like 6 weeks, and which is not how it happens
I know,
typically.
no, like, everyone's like, "Where were you drinking something like, was there a special fruit punch that you were drinking by the pool that helped you to write a novel in 6
My
weeks?" Yeah.
magic potion by the pool
Yeah.
there was, yeah, no, it was I mean, it really was such a God thing. There's no other way
Mhm.
around it.
Yeah.
And it was this story that I believed in so much. And I had self-published that first thing I had written really just for fun. I mean, more just like, hey, I want to hold a book. And this was early days of self-publishing. So it wasn't done in the good way that people can self-publish
Yeah.
now. I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
doing, you know?
Yeah.
But I did that, and then this one, I believed in it so much, and I just knew something was different about it, and so I really started pursuing publication, and I guess the rest is history on that. So that book was, The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck, which was my, first one, traditionally published, and been writing rom-coms ever since.
I love that. Okay, so many questions, but let me start with this. Did you, like, grow up loving to read or just, like, creative were you, like, creative kid? Um
I loved to read, I loved movies and television,
Mhm.
and I still do.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was always like, in my family, we were such a pop culture family, like, we watched movies together, we watched television shows
Mm.
together, it wasn't a babysitter, you know, it was we would watch Family Ties and then discuss the very special episode. You know, that was more like our life, and but we also, like, had so much celebrity stuff, like reading People magazine, and
Mhm.
my grandmother subscribed to, like, Star magazine and the National Enquirer, so we always knew, like, all the details of every celebrity's life, you know, the details, the
Yeah.
made up stuff in the tabloids, but I thought it was real. And so, yeah, so there was a lot of that, and I definitely did love to read, but not in a you know, I would say compared to so many people I talk to, it's like I wasn't a reader in the
Right.
way so many people are where they'd read all the like, there are still so many classics I'm ashamed to admit I haven't read and,
Yeah.
you know, all that, but I love story, and I
Mhm.
think then theater really became the thing for me of where all the storytelling really came to fruition until the writing started.
Yeah, that's so fun because I think so many times, like, you're like, "I was a vice president of a bank, and then I decided to write." But I think there's so many, like, seeds that God puts in us, and, like, I think he creates us with these things that are in us, like, in your when you need an outlet for the
Right,
stress, it's like you turn to words. Like, you can't go join a theater troupe at that time in your life, but
right.
there's words, and there's so many people that I talk to in that interview, they talk about, "When my kids were little, when I was had babies and up in the night, I would write with one finger on my thumb on my phone. I mean, all these things because
Uh-huh.
it's like there's something in us, I think that is that creative thing that needs to get
Yeah.
out, and story is a way that gets out, and the stories, I mean, you were wrapped up in stories, I mean, it was like TV shows and,
Mhm.
Inquirer magazine or all these things, but there's still story. There's still,
Right.
Brynn is a morning show host. I mean, there's that element, and so
Mhm.
I've loved to kind of peel back the layers and see that those little seeds that God puts in us, like, later we can see, like, "Okay, this makes sense." But in
Right.
the moment when you're just like, "I'm so stressed from this banking job," I love how like, the first moment, like, I'm just gonna start writing. I have this thing
Yeah.
in my head, and I just need to get it
Gotta
out.
get
It's
it
so
out like a
fun.
splinter. Yeah, you just have to get it out, and, you know, and when I look back, and I've told this story so many times, but it's so pivotal in my life, like, the only writing award I ever won until, you know, the past several years was, when I was in 2nd grade, I won this, like, state level contest, but it was just, you know, that essay that everyone had to write of, "If you could have lunch with any person, living or dead, who would it be and why?" And, you know, everybody wrote and it was the '80s, and it was, like, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and all these major people, and I picked John Stamos, who was
Oh,
Uncle
yeah.
Jesse on Full
Oh,
House.
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
hello.
obviously. It's like,
Yeah.
as everyone should, duh. And, you know, and I look back on that now and like I said, I won, and so that was huge, but I look back on that now as even then, it's like because yeah, Brynn is a morning show host, and every every, um, every book I've written is something about this entertainment industry, like somebody, you know, whether I've got writers, I've got celebrity chefs, I've got, you know, whatever it may be. But that is such a thread for me. And so it is fascinating. Like you were saying of the things that are planted so early. It's like in 2nd grade, I knew who I was as a writer. I didn't know who I was, but I
Yeah,
was being
exactly.
who I was, you know. And now I can look back and know that, you know, I'm even to this day kind of true to who I was as an 8-year-old, and that's a kind of a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think we can look back at those things, and it's just like confirmation. Like for me, when I started writing, it was like, oh, I love to read. And then I like it's a confirmation of what God had already put in me. It's not like all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's this complete shift, and so it's so cool
Right.
that it's like this growing out and feeling more us the more we do what God created us to do. And he
Absolutely.
he he gave you a funny bone. Like it's so funny. Like the stuff that comes out, you're like, I don't know. She's up in a
Uh,
tree. Like, I don't know. Oh, what if we put Sebastian in the tree too? What's gonna come out of this? Like it's
no.
so fun
Yeah.
to see how different people and some people like, I mean, me, I usually have the plot. I know what's gonna happen. There will be some changes in there, but I know what's
Mhm.
going to happen. And you're like, I don't know. It's almost like you're exploring. You're gonna find out what's happening in the next scene as you sit down and write it, which is so
As I
fun.
sit down and write it, it's like these 2 will end up together. Beyond that, I have no idea where we're going with this, and yeah, it makes it so fun. Also stressful as you're approaching deadlines
Yeah.
sometimes and still don't know,
You're like, I have
but
no idea how this is gonna
I don't know. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just so curious. Like I went to my first writers conference. I'm aging myself right now. 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was
Wow.
22 at my first writers conference, and I just remember going there and walking around like, "These are my people. Like, these are my people." And so what was it when you're like, "Okay, I need to do something with this." When did you first, like, connect with other writers or learned how to become a writer? I wanna hear that story next.
Yeah. Well, okay, I went to my first writing conference in 2017. I think it was late summer, early fall of 2017, and the book was about to come out in October.
Mhm.
So I didn't have anything out yet, but
Mm.
it had been building for a while and I'd networked with some people and all that. And what I was actually what really struck me at that, I mean, because I loved it. And yes, I made so many friends and connected and all of that, but it was also um, these are my people, and yet I am very different than a lot of these people.
Yeah.
I mean, not exclusively, but it's like writers as a group tend to be sort of introverted a lot of the time and tend to, and I would
Mhm.
look around the room and I mean, seriously, no disrespect. It was beautiful to see how different we all were. But, I would look around the room and there were these, people who were so uncomfortable being there, bless their
Mhm.
hearts, and putting
Mhm.
themselves out of their comfort zones. Meanwhile, I'm just like, "Hey, you're my new best friend. Let's go."
Yeah.
And that's who I am. And so I think that was really that was huge for me. Like because I
Mhm.
think where I would have actually um wanted to hide was if everyone was an extrovert and I felt like, "Oh, I have nothing different to offer here."
Mhm.
But the fact that I was 1 out of every 5,
Yeah, exactly.
and so I was able to kind of just I think that's when I kind of started discovering that for whatever reason, God kind of made me able to, put people at ease a little
Mhm.
bit, and once I kinda started to figure out that's sort of my niche a little bit, then it was kind of like, "Oh, I just get to be me, and it's a
Mhm.
little bit wacky, and I do stick out like a sore thumb, and yes, there are people who don't like it, and that's okay."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really did start to feel that way, and that started building the community for me because then I also found my other extroverts and my goofies and, all of these things all these lovely ladies who, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we cannot be left alone together or there's gonna be
Yeah.
trouble." But
Yes.
yeah, and so I think that was really it for me was realizing I'm different,
Mhm.
um, and that's great because I love, what this person brings to it, and I love what this person brings to
Mhm.
it, and I'm bringing something different, and so, yay, maybe they love what I bring to it, and so that was huge,
Yeah.
huge.
I think that's so good because I just got back last week from a writers conference, and there'll be jokes on from the keynote speakers about all the introverts, and the next day, like someone's like, "I'm an extrovert." Like, "I'm an extrovert." Like, "You guys are running to your rooms," and I'm like, "Hey, no, it's not time to go to bed." Yeah. So all these different
Exactly.
people, different personas, and I'm the person in the group, I can be extroverted, but then I get really exhausted and I need to go by myself for a while. So there's
Mhm.
a mix of those things, but I love
Yeah.
how the unique things. like God, again, our unique personalities, and it comes through whether we're with other writers, whether we're with readers. I mean, you'd be so fun. Like if readers hung out with you, they'd be like, "Okay, this is really fun." And you get that in the book. Like this is really fun.
Mhm.
Like this is a fun journey. This is a fun book. I started probably Thursday or Friday, and I'm like, it's Easter. I have company, and I'm still like, okay, I'm gonna go over here and peel some mashed potatoes and listen to this book on audio because it's so fun.
Well,
So
that's the
I
best
love it.
compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
love it.
you.
Yes.
And I do think that's been really fun too, like, as I've figured out my style. Because, like I said, when I started writing, I didn't know I was writing a book. It was
Yeah.
more just a journal entry as someone else. Well, that's still what I do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, like, obvious to you, not to everybody, but Brynn and Sebastian is first person, third person, so Sebastian's is told third person, but Brynn, I really hope you feel like you're just
Mhm.
sitting down having coffee with Brynn and she's recounting the last couple months for you or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And that's what I love. That's the way I love to write is just okay, let's get deep into this person's head. People talk
Mhm.
about I mean, I know deep POV and all these things, and sometimes that can be it's an intense thing for people, but it's like it can also just be so fun,
Mhm.
and I love bringing like that, just that realness, which I hope comes through. That's definitely what I'm going for. So yeah.
Yes. All right. So tell me about some of your other books. I told you this is my first one. I love
Okay.
it. What else do I need to go back and read? Because I know I have some catching
Wow.
up to do here.
Well, let's see. So the first one, like I said, was called The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck, and that was the story of a steamy romance writer who became a Christian and fell in love with her pastor,
Oh, okay.
and basically was dealing with, yeah, like a mess of her life, and she was a hot mess, and I love it. So went from that to, won't hit them all, obviously, but like Hadley Beckett's Next Dish is about a couple of celebrity chefs, so like on the Food
Ooh.
Network type thing, and they're and they're very yeah, so Hadley is this sweet, sassy Southern chef, and Max, who Denise is very kindly talking about there. Max is one of my favorites because he's very much this brooding gourmet kind of thing with a major anger management problem when we first meet
Oh,
him. And
okay.
yeah, I always said that one to me was like Pioneer Woman and Gordon Ramsay, just
Okay.
so yeah, just a mess. Yeah, and then the one that came out, let's see, most recently before Brennan Sebastian was called The Do-Over, and that one is, I love going back home stories, and that one was the story
Mhm.
of a lawyer who, high-end New York attorney, very successful, who walks into the boardroom thinking she's being named senior partner, and instead she's told that she's being put on leave while she's investigated for embezzlement, which
Ooh.
she did not do. And we know that, and she knows that, but she has to wait it out while everyone else
Mm.
figures that out. And so she goes back home and have a documentarian in that one who named Henry, who's also one of my favorites. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of common themes. I mean, like I said, always entertainment industry, one way or another. And but lots of stories of going back home and seeking whatever's been missing, or
Mhm.
whether they have any idea what that is or not. Those are a lot of the things I love to do. So,
Yeah, I love that, and I love going back home stories. You mentioned that too because my graduating class was like 42 people. A little town in Northern
okay.
California. Like, we all know each other. Like, we were like, most of us went to school together since kindergarten. And like, I jumped on the phone call probably 6 months ago with a friend. I was a cheerleader with her. We've known each other since we were little. I have photos of her like my first grade, second grade birthday parties. I mean, just like, and it's just like you just kind of pick up where
Yeah.
you left off, but also you're different, but not different. And so I just love that. I just love that,
Hmm.
that there's so much you can do with a going home story.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's oh, yeah. So, speaking of the graduating class of which, our Adelaide Springs kids, Brynn, not Sebastian, but Brynn is there were 5 of them that were,
Mhm.
part of this little small town class. And you mentioned, Cole and Layla, and their story's actually coming out next. So
Yay! Okay, so
yeah.
like literally, I did not know that was coming out next. I'm like, this better be the next couple because you have so much in this book that you just love. Like, I love them, love them, and I'm like, she better
Yay.
be doing these guys next. So,
They'll be out in June.
okay,
And then I'm
and then
currently writing Wes and Addie's story.
I
So that,
was
yeah.
wondering about that.
Yeah, so that one will be out in 25. So, yeah,
Okay,
we got to finish them out. So, we'll
okay, you're currently writing that.
I am. I am. So, but that one is called Wes and Addie Had Their Chance, a love story. So,
Okay,
yeah, so we've, very much a enemies to more, friends to more, and then second chance. So we're running the
okay.
gamut with this group of Adelaide
Yeah,
Springs
I'm
kids.
currently not liking Wes from what I'm knowing about him now.
Good. You should not.
So
That's good.
so this will be good by book 3. To give Wes a little to hear his point of view. I'll be curious what
Mhm.
this Wes has to say.
Mhm. He has a little tougher redemption arc than the rest of
I was
them, that's
gonna
for
say,
sure.
come on, Wes. Come on, Wes. We gotta all right.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so many good things. I'm totally a Bethany Turner fan now. I will say that.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
so I need a little button to wear, little button. So next time I see you at a conference, I need a button. Just saying that.
Okay, okay, okay. I'll make one just for
Um,
you.
all right, there you go. Okay, but where can people go to find out more information about you and all of your books?
Yeah, so I'm C Bethany Wright, as in like C spot run. I don't know, so SEE Bethany Wright, WRITE, .com at C Bethany Wright on social media. So C Bethany Wright pretty much anywhere. I love to text with people. So I
Okay.
actually have a text line. People can text me.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just throw the number out there. It's
Yeah.
970 387 7811. So
Okay,
970
repeat that. Yeah,
okay.
repeat that slower.
Okay, 970-387-7811.
I
So,
think you're the only person I've talked to that does this. Do you know anyone that does this?
nope.
Like, okay, this is fun. You guys can
I
text Bethany.
You can text me. Absolutely. So please do. I love it. And, we usually, I'll send out reminders about deals or whatever, but also I randomly reach out to people like, "What are you watching on Netflix right now? I need recommendations." So, it's just fun, and I just love connecting with people. So, yeah, that's another good way to do it.
All right, so fun. Okay, last question, and then we'll
Yes.
let you go. What's a book that you've enjoyed? What's a Christian novel that you've enjoyed?
There are obviously
She's looking
endless.
over at her bookshelf
I
right now.
I I am. I am. I'm like, which one am I gonna call out at this moment? Which, one that I really loved was by a debut author named Becca Kinzer called Dear Henry, Love Edith. Um,
Oh,
I loved it. That one came out, I think it was last year, and she's got another one coming out that I can't wait to read called Love in Tandem. And so that will be coming out soon. But she has such a fun. It's rom com. It's just fun and uplifting, and kind of breath of fresh air sort of stuff for me. So yeah,
awesome.
Dear
Okay,
Henry,
repeat
Love
the
Edith.
title again. Dear
Okay,
Henry, love
Dear
Edith. Okay.
Henry, Love Edith.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's the cutest little cover with hearts and all these fun things. An adorable toaster. It's the best. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. An adorable toaster. It's the best. We're gonna do a
Look for
quote
the adorable.
graphic,
Yeah. Author
quote
Bethany
graphic for
Turner
that.
says an
All
adorable
right.
toaster. It's the best.
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, thank you, Bethany, for being here. It has been a
Ew.
joy.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad we finally got to connect, and
I know.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.